What's going on, everybody? My name is Tanner Thomason. I'm a TV host. I am a certified nerd, and I'm a big fan of WestWorld, and I'd like to welcome you to This Week in Geek. It's a weekly wrap-up of the best in sci-fi, fantasy, and pop culture. Joining me is another geek, Tim Gibbs. Tim, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm doing really, really good. I'm sad to see WestWorld go away for, I don't know, it might be a long time, but I was really excited to see this season happen. And yeah, I'm just excited to kind of like chat about it and try to figure out like what we just saw.
Well, that's it. So this week, all we're talking about is Westworld. We just got the season 3 finale. Obviously, a lot has happened in season 3. Just like you mentioned, we know that season 4 is coming, but that could be almost 2 years away, which is true because season 3's left us with a lot of questions.
Right. And we already had to wait 2 years for this one. Right. And in fact, before we started season 3, I had to go back and watch parts of season 1 and almost half of season 2, just to remind myself like where we left off with Dolores, where we left off with Charlotte, where we left off with Maeve and everybody else that's there. So, you know, if you didn't know the show well going into this season, I could see it being confusing. But if you knew the show really well, it was confusing as well.
We're calling these mother pearls because the pearls are what keeps the robots going. It's where
exactly.
And so
one of my mother pearl moments was when Dolores, and we obviously all know who Dolores is. She is the lead robot. She is hell-bent on, taking back some power from the humans. And she faces off with Maeve, who also has a number of fantastic powers and abilities also. I thought it was really something to see them, one, go at it in the streets of Los Angeles. And I think you and I had talked about this before. It's really interesting that like Dolores's go-to weapon is a gun, right. It's, and then Maeve, despite, whatever's coming at her, she always grabs a sword. And for those of you who keep up with the show, you would know that Maeve is known for her sword abilities from Shogun World. But that's going back a little bit too far. We won't get into that right now. But the fact that they face off, they have this epic fight and battle, and that at a certain point, I thought, Dolores could go ahead and kill Maeve and then end that saga, and then vice versa, and they both spared each other, and it left you wondering like, why doesn't she go ahead and kill her? Personally, I thought Maeve was going to take the sword and cut Dolores's head off. I thought that's how it was going to end, and it didn't. So it left me wondering, with the last few minutes of the show, then where's this going to go? Why didn't she like do away with her? Right. And I think it's because they both had a whole nother meaning to like why the other one was around, what they were supposed to do together.
Yeah, and I don't think Maeve necessarily had any like animosity towards Dolores. She was just doing whatever she had to do to get reunited with her daughter, which is what Sarah promised her.
Yeah, she definitely had a reason.
Yeah. My mother pearl, like the thing that blew my mind the most from this episode was the robot in a box. And it's when Caleb like leaves that facility in the desert and he drives the motorcycle into the city and he's got this address of where he needs to go, and he gets into that storage container, and then here's just this robot in pieces, like puts it together and then puts the pearl back in there, and her face closes back up, and then she wakes up, only got skin to here, and then she like puts on the skin like a glove. Oh,
yeah, no, it's freaky, right? Right. I mean, like that definitely takes all of like the glamour out of the thing. You're like, because the robots in WestWorld, they look perfect. They're either like
up to these robots, and here's just
exactly
skin.
Right. So to see them with like no skin and like all metal and everything else, it was like, oh my God, I've been like hanging out and sleeping with the Terminator. It's like terrifying.
That's absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Like not cool at all. Like
Not
not cool at
and
all.
also the way the face was apart and like the thing,
Yeah.
I was like, guys, that's messed up.
Yeah. So, you know, you definitely don't, after seeing that, there's definitely like a whole nother like veil has been taken away. You're like, oh, okay, I definitely don't see you as this like soft human figure that's just like us and everything else, whatever. Like, no, this is a machine and it will probably like kill you and eat you for
Mess
dinner.
you up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, mess you up. Yeah. Yeah. I had another Pearl moment that I noticed when Maeve was kind of toward the end and kind of figuring out what they were going to do with Dolores. And she's going back and forth with Sirach and realized that Sirach is not necessarily in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Sirach is getting his orders from the giant globe there at Insight. And that's really scary too, because they had all kind of alluded to the fact of like, you know, humans not being able to have any kind of free will either. So I thought that spelled that out like really well.
I like that moment a lot, but I also thought it was a little messed up, and I'll tell you why. And it's because like I don't know, like, so Maeve was there. Maybe that was the first time Maeve was in the presence of Sirach and Solomon at the same time, because like, she'd been around Sirach several times, and so it's like, would she not have noticed that little thing in his ear? Like, if she could like listen to robots and whatnot, I that one was a little weird to me.
True. But, you know, as the show has gone on, and especially in season 3, I personally thought that there were lots of little moments that you would just kind of not expect there to be flaws anywhere. For instance, not to go too far into it, but the fact that like Charlotte Hale appeared to Dolores
As a hologram.
as a hologram, and these technological robots that are like light years in the future, when those holograms come up, it's very real to them. They can't tell the difference between that visualization and something real. Like it holds their like attention, where clearly Caleb is like, what are you doing?
Oh,
who
and
are
who
you talking to?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like whatever's going on in there or whatever, like you need to like let that go. And Dolores cannot let that go, because in her mind, a virtual Charlotte or a real Charlotte is, you know, it's almost it's the same thing. It's a voice that she can't turn off. So I thought that was kind of like telling that, you know, it's a flaw in the program that they can't.
It's weird.
You know, help themselves. Yeah.
It's totally a weird thing. My second Pearl, very similar to your Pearl, mine was the fact that Solomon is speaking to Sirach, because like it blew my mind, because this is what I wondered. This is what I wondered about that is, remember Sirach put his brother on ice, right? So Sirach put his brother in that program for outliers or whatever. Does that mean that Solomon told Sirach to do that?
Possibly. I mean, and it brings up the case of at what point did Sirach start taking orders from the machine and not the other way around?
Yeah.
You know, and if that's the case, that could have been happening. I mean, you know, Sirach is what, in his like 40s, 50s? This could have been happening for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you start to think, then you get off into real deep sci-fi, which is like Solomon at that point is just trying to protect himself.
Right. Which is, and then as we saw, you know, on the little like, you know, time clock, as they kind of look toward the future, if everything goes the way that in the upload plans, then humans will outlive their existence through war and all these other things or whatever. And so basically we have another 100 years left on this earth and then we'll be gone.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, it still brings to mind, like, who's driving that ship?
For real.
Is that machines trying to go ahead and take over, or is it something that like we're destined to kind of happen because humans, are going to be greedy and have war and all these other things or whatever? And is that something that they're going to do to themselves? So yeah, it brings up a lot of like kind of moral questions, a lot of which are kind of resonant with regular people here today without robots.
Yeah,
without robots that we know of.
All right. Okay.
That we know of. We don't,
Listen. Hey. Some weird robots you can already buy.
Right. Exactly. And then I'll just say like the other pearl that I thought was really important. And if you're watching this out there and you are just kind of like tabbing through the show, but you haven't watched the end of WestWorld, I beg for you to like maybe click out and then click back on after you do whatever, just because it's a little spoiler alert. But the very last scene, which is, there was a double ending to the episode, and we see that William is still alive after all of the riots and everything else. He obviously looks like he's somewhere in the Middle East. He looks like he's at another Delos laboratory and everything. And once he sees Charlotte Hale again, who is now up and walking around, he is introduced to a post copy of himself, which is probably the worst thing he ever wanted. It is, in his mind, that is his worst nightmare. He wishes he never had anything to do with these things. He knows that these things are out to like kill or take over humans, and to know that he was part of that, it makes him sick. And then to know that now one of them is going to replace him is just devastating. And unfortunately, we have to wait to find out what happened.
Well, the other thing is it confirms that he was always real, which is like, to me, the important takeaway in that moment, because it's like, season 3, I didn't know if he was real or not. Well, remember in season 2, there were all those weird scenes where I was like, there's definitely no way he's a regular person anymore. He's
right.
Like that's what they did in season 3, is like the ending there is that like, no, he was real, and now we have the Man in Black.
Welcome to the end.
Yeah, well, and then part of the and that's part of what you brought up before about the twist of the show. Part of the magic to the show is like you not knowing where the story is going, and because of the fact that William was so crazy and so obsessed that he kind of virtually went insane. So during the other seasons, he is kind of drifting in and out of reality. So you really don't know where he's going with things or what's real and what's not. So it's very easy to think that like, oh, this is a past life that he's thinking about, a past memory. He's not really alive anymore. He's a host, so he still has those memories like Bernard and some of the other ones do. So I can see that can be like really confusing. But now it's not confusing at all. You know who the real William is. You know who the host is.
And that he's also legitimately gone crazy. Like he's legitimately lost his mind, which kind of explains like, towards the end of season 3, he was like, I'm the good guy now, I'm going to kill all the robots, where it's like, okay, you sound like a crazy person, but he is a crazy person.
He is a crazy person, yeah. So at least we know that for sure.
Yeah.
And then we'll have to wait and see what the rest of it happens,
Mother Pearl number 3 for me, and this is like, this is a tough one for me, because it's just, this whole season was about like Dolores Prime, like regular Dolores, like playing chess, right? She had all these different Doloreses. Each one had a different function, yada, yada, yada. So was the whole plan for her the entire time to get caught and get her brain uploaded into Solomon? Because that's where the plan was. Like the plan was in her brain. Because Caleb was sent with the plan to put it in the machine, and then they stopped him and they had her hooked up to the machine, and then they were just memory by memory taking her apart. And by the end of it, they'd gotten the plan. So it was almost like it's a little bit of like a MacGuffin, where it was like, like in the movie Indiana Jones, right? Indiana Jones, they're looking for the Holy Grail.
Right.
They eventually find it, and it opens, and all of the bad guys die. And so the whole thing is like, if Dolores had the plan, she could have just been caught earlier, I guess, and uploaded into him earlier. I don't know.
I think her plan was to cause all of the mayhem, you know, the riots, the secrets that needed to be let out, that humans have been like going past all the time. She needed all of those mechanisms to happen. And then once all of that happened, then now you pull her in there because you're trying to extract her information when her information is the one thing that's going to kill that full program. So now they're you know, all the rules are off. Like, you have kind of fully succeeded in her mission. So I think what we didn't know was, we didn't really know what was driving Dolores's mission, what was driving her like this entire 3 seasons. And now, you know, through this one action, her allowing herself to be caught at the end, once all of that has transpired, then now we see what her mission was, and that you know, everyone's life, whether it be, you know, this technological life that's inside of the AI of the host, what their lives might be like, but this is now going to change human life also, because humans have been living, I guess, under this guise that, like, you know, everything is perfect and crime is low and I'm leading the life that I should, when everything has been directed by like a robot for the last like 30 or 40 years. So
Can't trust
it's kind of deep. I think you're right. I think that was her mission the whole time.
Yeah, it's messed up.
Yeah.
Speaking of messed up, I want to talk about the WTF JH scene, which is what the flip just happened.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. I'm gonna go first with this one.
Okay.
I gotta go back to it. It was one of my mother pearls, but I gotta harp on it again. The one that made me go, what the fuck, was the robot in a box, because the thing, it just set me out. Here's the reason it blew my mind the most.
Okay.
Right. So you see the skeleton, and when she's putting on the hand and like she's got the face on and everything, because like, how did they identify with the skin? Because it's like, they don't need the skin, but in all of their memories, they have the skin, right? Like, why she could just be walking around without it if she's looking for a real home for the robots, or do they want to look like people all the time?
Okay. I'm gonna share this with you. I think we kind of talked about this before during one of the other episodes. I think in order for them to operate and be completely convincing as hosts, they, even though that they know they are physically different, they innately have to think and feel and react as humans. So part of that is looking and playing. Part of being is like looking and playing the part. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, I might think in my head that, you know, at 5'3", that I can go play for the Lakers. But realistically, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But it might make me feel a little bit more like a Laker if I put on, you know, some really, you know, jazzy tennis shoes and the outfit and the jersey. And once I put on the jersey and everything else, whatever, you throw me the ball, I'm like, yeah, you can't tell me nothing.
Yeah, you can look like a basketball player.
Yeah, I can really speak, you know, so it's part of that whole like mental training. So for them to play the host that they are and to imitate human behavior, they kind of need all of that. They need the skin, they need the face, they need the clothing, especially like if you look at somebody like Dolores. Dolores was so convincing as a host when we met her in season 1 because of the fact that like she's this beautiful blonde damsel in distress, you know, with her Western dress on and everything else and waiting on blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, it kind of takes away from the storyline if you walk into WestWorld or whatever, and there's a big, like, metal woman, like,
Oh, you can't be having that. No.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, you can't have that and everything. So they even feel more human when they look more human, when they interact with more humans. They kind of like adopt that. So I think for them, for her putting like the weird skin on her arms and stuff, it was just like, I don't know, like if you're gonna go to a job interview, you're putting on pants. And personally, I'm not gonna ask whether you're wearing pants on the Zoom call. I'm not gonna ask. I'm just
Listen, we're gonna keep that a secret. But
okay.
it's just a little weird to think about skin in a bag and everything. That's it. That's all. That's all I have. Like,
No, it was weird.
Like,
yeah, it was weird. It was weird and freaky, and like she put the skin on like it was like a sock out of the dryer.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Like put spandex or something.
Yeah. So that was weird. Yeah.
Definitely weird.
Okay, my what the just happened moment. There were a couple of them. I one of them I mentioned before. Whatever, the street battle between Maeve and Dolores. I just loved that. It was just like fantastic and everything else. And once again, I thought it was going to end in one of their deaths, and it did not. So I was kind of shocked there. But I'll throw in, I had another one, which was a little bit more soft-sided and perhaps a little bit more like sentimental, when Bernard got in the car and was like driving at night, and I was kind of figuring out like where he was gonna go, and he pulls up at this house, and it is the house of his ex-wife. And I thought that was very telling that he, even though he's a host, he's still very tied to those human thoughts and emotions of what he was based on, and cared enough to see how the rest of her life went. Because, like you're a host, like you can live like 50, 60, 70 years or whatever in that age. So he still looks the same. And she is now, suffering from something like dementia, and she's a lot older and everything else. And, I thought it was very like kind of bold for him to go there, because, he might get there and like scare her. She might be like,
sure, yeah,
good Lord, this is it. You have a heart attack and I'm out or whatever. But the fact that like he went to like see about her and everything, and the fact that like some kind of way through all of that, she was able to still remember his face and their son, and they had to talk about that. And as a host, that even like affected him. I mean, like he didn't really have a child, but in his mind and in his pearl, he really did and everything, whatever. So for him to like hold her hand and like shed a tear, with an older like dying woman that used to be his wife, I thought that was like, I don't know, there was something very like deep there.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I thoroughly enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't sure at first how much time had passed, but when it was clear that was his wife,
right?
It was a good one. That was a great scene. I was so happy.
Yeah.
It was like also interesting that Dolores sent him there to talk to her. Like that was another sort of like interesting plot point.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, we're finding out more and more that like Dolores, even though she did a lot of bad things over the course of this season, she wasn't necessarily the bad guy.
Yeah.
Sort of, kind of.
Necessarily a bad robot in a bad robot show.
Oh, I like that. All right.
Literally, the show's made by Bad Robot.
I know. Fantastic. That was very, very clever, Tanner.
Thank you, sir. Been working all week for that one. Okay,
yeah.
So there was something we wanted to talk about power players, just like who had the big moment in each episode, and you and I both agree in this episode there was something that was a little weird that was like a big power move. And that was, it seems like Dolores propping up Caleb.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought this entire time that Dolores was basically using Caleb as like this human pawn to kind of help her get from place to place, do what she needed to do, and kind of utilizing his crime skills, his killing skills from being a soldier. I thought like, okay, well, she's found the one guy that's done a lot of bad shit, just to be very honest, and wanted to kind of like use those things to her advantage, not realizing that the only thing or person that can save the human race, which obviously, because she has all this innate knowledge of like what's going to happen or thinks what's going to happen, the only being to save the human race is a human being, not necessarily her, which also gave a degree of depth to her that I didn't think really existed. I just didn't think, like you did, that she would kind of hand over the reins to someone like him.
Well, and the other thing too is like WestWorld to me has had the biggest story arc in WestWorld has been that women who have been oppressed are now in power and they're kicking ass, and it's an awesome thing to see. It makes for interesting stories, like interesting characters. I like it. And then so about like we kind of had this like kind of like Terminator, like there's a lot of classic sci-fi movie flavorings in this season of West. Kind of like how like the Terminator got sent back and he's a robot, and like John Connor is going to lead the humans, but when we meet John Connor, boy, and he's being told that he's going to be the leader by the robot, by the Terminator, and so this is the exact same thing here, where it's like
very much.
And she's like, "Oh, you're going to be the leader of the new world," and he's like, "Who?"
Right. Yeah, and kind of when it went rolling toward the end, that she kind of brought up to him that, by now you don't even know who you really are because your memories have been tattered with.
Oh, yeah.
Erased. So part of his military training was done with these WestWorld humanoids, where they were allowed to like shoot them and kill them and capture them and all this other stuff. So in that genre, which took place very early in his military training, he met Dolores and actually, and she was able to see back then that he was a caring human being that didn't have the same thought process that other people did. So once again, it still makes you think and wonder, like, wow, how long has Dolores been on this path of redemption? Like, from the minute that she was made, did she actually start kind of putting together how this was all gonna like play out, over decades?
One of my favorite lines was when like Maeve said something about, I don't remember what Maeve's line was, but it was in the middle of their fight or whatever. And Dolores at one point pops back and she's like, "You were all made after me. I was the first one who worked."
Yeah. I love that line. Yeah.
That really threw things into perspective, that like Dolores has been learning about humans and learning about strategy and learning about all of these things just longer than everybody else.
Right. And as we found out like during the season that, Maeve, Bernard, some of the other ones, Charlotte, ones that came like after her may have certain other like tricks up their sleeve and other abilities and other things. Dolores's main ability was knowing innate human behavior and tracking it and remembering it and being able to use it to her advantage. And you're right. That's just because it's a time thing. She's been doing this and living this life so long that she's been able to kind of really know what to say and what to do in almost every single situation to gain the upper hand, because, you know, as she kind of put it, like she knows that like humans are predictable and can't help themselves.
Well, it's like she's the oldest host, which is just like an interesting and fun thing to think about in terms of like the show and whatnot. Okay, so host with the most and best human in the episode. Who's your host with the most? Who's your best human?
My host with the most for this episode goes to someone who is there virtually but not physically, and I would say it's Charlotte. There's something in her drive and her motive that honestly we still don't quite know that keeps her coming back for more. And the key is for following Charlotte is that the Charlotte that we met at the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, as this high-powered executive that wants to get things done, that is blah, 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 like that key to her has remained regardless of her entire time as a human. And then when we figure out that she's been replaced or copied, and when she's replaced or copied, she's still somewhere down in there, whatever, got the same key components to her personality, and that's why she's able to succeed at every other turn. So
like the best plus the best of Dolores, which is like kind of terrifying.
Right. As I creatively called it, you know, Charlores.
Charlores.
Right.
Well, there's Charlores, but I also like Charlores because she'd been charred.
Oh, I like that. I didn't think about that. Another good one.
The first time you said it to me, I thought that's what you were talking about, is Charlores. No. I was
okay.
Like, oh
you know what? If you allow me to take credit for that, but I gotta give that one to you, whatever. Charlores, because she got burned up. That's pretty good.
Charlores. Yeah, I thought that's what you're hitting me with. I was like,
no. You got applause for that one. That was good. See, I guess we were both going the same place on that. We just kind of had different ways of getting there. But Charlores, that spells it all out. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing like her come back in this vivid visualization to Dolores. One as you know, thinking her own thoughts, planning her own takeover, and letting Dolores know whatever, that regardless of what she had planned, she had plans of her own. And I thought like Charlotte is a badass, and like she's either gonna be a human or a robot or in your computer or in your laptop or in your phone, but like Charlotte ain't going away. You better run because she's gonna come and get you, and she's always gonna have the last word.
Yeah, hide your kids, hide your wife. Charlores
is out to get you.
About to burn your ass up.
Yes.
My favorite bot of this episode, and part of this honestly is because of like the flash forwards at the end of the season, like the multiple endings. Man, Bernard, like I felt like Bernard was really hitting some next levels. Like when he hit the button and he's like, "Remember yourself." Right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, there are two Bernards in there, and one of them's willing to be violent, sort of like a Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. Like I thought that was awesome. Then, man, Tim, it blew my mind whenever he when him and Half Price Hemsworth got into the hotel room, and he puts Hemsworth in the tub.
Oh, right.
He puts him in the tub on ice because he's been shot up, so he's gonna hit him.
Right. All right, and he has some liquor.
Yeah. He's like, drink this cheap booze, and then he opens up the suitcase. I thought that there was going to be a pearl in the suitcase, and he was going to connect to another robot. But he puts on this thing, and like, whenever they cut to it at the ending, how long do you think he'd been sitting there?
Years. I don't think it's been 20 years
for that much.
But I think it's been. I mean, well, think of it this way. I mean, the riots have erupted, all this other stuff. Society has gone like down the drain. William has obviously left the United States and gone to the Middle East. Like, I just think all of these things might be like, I don't know, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, who knows like how long in the future, but like,
okay.
At that point, he's in this hotel room, he's a robot, everybody's running around like burning up Los Angeles and San Francisco, whatever. So, he's been left for dead. Nobody knows he's in there. And so like, yeah, I think when he wakes up out of this, it's years and years later.
See, my theory is that the other stuff happened basically immediately, and that he might have been sitting there. Like when he wakes up, there was just so much dust on him. Like part of me thought that literally it was a decade later or something.
Wow. You know what? Hopefully we won't have to wait a decade to find out for season 4.
I know. I know.
Yeah. Let's do a little hot buy.
The thing that I like about Hot as a segment title, it also, hey, quick question. Do you remember in the early days of the internet? Oh man, Tim, do you remember the early days of the internet? There used to be this website called Hot or Not. Do you remember that?
I think I do.
So
I think I do.
The way Hot or Not worked is you would upload your own photo to Hot or Not, and then just random people on the internet would click whether you were hot or not, and then it would keep up with a score, and it would be like, yo, you're 76% hot. And you're like 70.
No, if you think about it, it was the first Tinder.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first Tinder. That's what that was. Yeah. And just stop for a second and think like, why would you do that to yourself?
Why
would you do that to yourself? Why would you put yourself on display on there, hot or not, for somebody to go through and click on it just to dish you, just because that's what we do? Like, why would you do that to yourself?
That's what we do. That's what we want to do, is we want to mess people up.
Yeah. And so by volunteering in that or whatever, you're volunteering to mess yourself up. So ridiculous.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So in that same vein, Tanner, just to kind of throw a little something in that's like not just episode related. I would personally like to say that, like, I think part of the magic of WestWorld, like we've brought up a million times, is that these robots are so convincing. They look like us, they sound like us, they act like us. Half of them are based on actual human beings, and some of them are so convincing that they would be smart, hot, and sexy enough to actually get a date in Los Angeles.
Let me tell you something. Anthony Hopkins didn't mess it around, and he made some sexy ass robots.
He did. Yeah. So, I think a lot of them would fare a lot better than most people if they were like in our existence, like, on the apps and everything. Yeah. So I don't know. I think, hosts, they deserve to live a little bit too. They deserve to have their own type of, exchange with other hosts. Or even with humans. So I think they would have their own like version of like Tinder. We could call it something like, I don't know, Hotbot.
Hotbot. Yeah. We could call it Hotbot.
Like that? I don't know. I think that would work. So the main thing with Hotbot works just like any of these other things. We mention the name of one of the hosts, and then we figure out whether somebody would, either swipe left or swipe right on them. Yeah. We're here to cater to everybody, whatever. So let's talk about a few of them.
All right, hit me with it.
All right, Dolores.
Oh, Dolores, definitely hot bot. I'm giving a Dolores the swipe right. I'm pausing a little bit on season 1 Dolores. Like the big blue dress would give me just a little pause, but from the moment he got on the horse and started shooting people, that's a hard swipe right for me.
Got it. I would say Dolores is a swipe right, but it depends on what Dolores that you're looking at. Season 1,
Dolores?
Season 2, Season 3.
Uh-huh.
Season 3 Dolores is hot, sexy, but man, I mean, she's out to kill everybody.
Season 3 Dolores is a little intimidating.
Yeah. So just for that reason, I'm gonna have to say, like, with Dolores, you got to swipe left with her, because I mean, you don't want, no one wants Dolores to be, the last pretty face they see on earth.
But that's true. That's definitely true, especially once they saw her without her skin on. So
yeah. Oh, non-skin Dolores, definitely.
Hard left.
Hard left. Keep going. Hard left. Yeah. All right. So Maeve,
that's a hard swipe right. I'm not even mad about her being a madame in season 1. Also, man, here's the thing. I like skills, and sword skills is a very specific skill set, but it's attractive.
It is. It's kind of like, really sexy, might kill you,
but
real sexy. Sexy. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then, definitely, she deserves a swipe right. I would say, for now, since we're talking about Maeve, one of her, host boyfriends happens to be Hector. Yep. Hector, a very very suave guy, very got the accent. He's got the smoldering looks. He knows what to say, even if it's an insult, but say it with a grin and a smile, and it certainly drives all the women in WestWorld wild. And we get to see a little bit later on in season 3 that, like, he actually has some feelings and has a heart, and really develops some feelings for Maeve. So I would say Hector deserves a swipe.
Yeah, I'm giving him. Listen, I get it, guys. Tall drink of water. He's got the beard. He's got the machismo. Seasons 1 and 2, he's getting the right swipe. Season 3, I thought he was a little bit of a dope. I wanted him to be. I wanted his brain like turned back to normal, but we didn't quite get that. He wasn't as cool in season 3. Side note. This took me a while to realize. Did you ever see the movie The 300? You remember The 300?
That's him. Yeah, that's him.
When I made that connection, I was like,
yeah, crazy, right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So in his ways, he's always played larger than life characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So another one, since we're talking about love interest, Teddy, played by the most handsome guy in Hollywood, James Marsden.
The most handsome?
Well, one of them.
He's handsome, yeah.
Okay. You sound like there's some reservations there.
Nah, well, it's just like I've just been like, here's the thing about Teddy. James Marsden aside, James Marsden always attractive. Teddy as a character to me has always been just like a wet sock. He's never like really, but that's just his programming. It's not his fault. But he's never done anything.
Right. True. Yeah. And a lot of what he did do was all kind of like driven by Dolores.
Right.
What he wanted for Dolores, what he needed for Dolores actually getting in his head and telling him what to do and reprogramming him and everything. So yeah, he definitely had like, the look to the Western style, but like, as far as like, I don't know, he didn't really have the machismo that you would want, a Western gunslinger to have. He was just kind of like there to, kind of do Dolores's bidding. So I guess in that factor, whatever, we'd have to throw that in, and like, he gets a swipe left.
Oh, I thought you were gonna swipe right him still.
Yeah, no. I agree with you.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. Sorry.
We're gonna exchange ideas. I feel you. I understand. I hear what you're throwing out. He moves to the left.
Sorry about you, Teddy. You got swiped left.
All right, and so I'll let this one be our last one. Clementine.
Oh.
We don't see Clementine for a long, long time. She was certainly very popular in WestWorld, very popular with Maeve and all of the, let's call them ladies of the night in the saloon. But turned out she was a great friend, a great adversary. She, turned out to be a little bit more than, what we thought she was. And then we get a little glimpse of her really like kicking ass in like season 3. So I don't know. I think Clementine has a little bit of what Maeve has, whatever, like, hot, sexy, might kick your ass, might kill you, but it might be worth it. So,
well, yeah, no, I'm definitely giving that the swipe right. I love the saloon girls getting back together, having each other's back. That's
right.
Also, the actress who plays Clementine, I can't recall her name off the top of my head, but like a decade ago, she was in an acting class with my friend. And so it's like, this was, it might have been more than a decade at this point, because it was like, because she's also in the Twilight movies. And so like right before Twilight came out, she was like, oh, my friend in my acting class just booked this huge role, blah, blah, blah. And that's freaking her.
Wow. Yeah, well, but she's a badass. So I don't know, maybe, and we didn't see that much of Clementine actually in season 3. So I think that would lead us to believe she is still going to be present and kicking butt in season 4 and looking hot and beautiful and sexy. So I don't know, Clementine, you get a swipe right.
Clementine, hot bot. I was watching, I was searching through the WestWorld hashtags and different stuff like that, and I got on Instagram, and a friend of mine reposted this girl's story. You might have just gotten it, and if not, I'll just explain it to you. So the account is on Instagram. This is subhaha, SUBHAHA. And
I see that. You can't see me, but I'm reading the text, but I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So this is an actress, and she has that one scene there towards the end. It's very pivotal when William rolls into the Middle East and he's talking to the.
Oh, yeah.
And this was like a big thing for her, and so
she was at the front desk when William comes in there to start.
Yeah, she's at the front desk, and so I just want to read her post real quick. She wrote, "Sappy post warning. So grateful I got to have a small part in the season finale of WestWorld, but I owe everything to Playhouse West LA, my teachers, my acting coach. As a comedian, I kept getting thrown into auditions, so I signed up for this school, and I discovered a whole new respect and love for acting, and I'm so grateful, especially for the opportunity to work across Ed Harris. Holy shit. I know it's a small part, but it was so cool. Shout out for her friend who helped her with a last-minute self-tape." And so that's just something, I don't know. It's just cool to me when people get these opportunities, because it's like, even if it might be like a small role or whatever, it's like it was a pivotal scene, and we all just watched it and thought it was awesome. So
yeah. And once again, there she is at the beginning of this new life of what we think is going to be season 4. So who knows what kind of big things might be happening for her in the future. And just to throw in also, some of like the little things and like cameos, more than cameos, roles that we saw like in this one of Kid Cudi playing Caleb's friend, in the Army back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and Lena Waithe, who has been writing and producing and being on all kinds of different series. And to see her have like, a very pivotal role in this futuristic world of WestWorld was, kind of phenomenal also.
Yeah, not only Lena Waithe, who was phenomenal in Ready Player One, but also Marshawn Lynch, the football player,
Yes.
who was
Yeah.
like I when I first saw Marshawn in early on in season 3, I was like, what?
You're like, is that him? Yeah.
So it was super cool to see have both of them come back for the finale.
Yeah. So no.
I still think they're figments of Caleb's imagination, though. That's still my theory. I still think they're not actually real. I think that he has a little schizophrenia, and I think that they're imaginary. That's what I think.
That is a very good note, and you are actually going to make me go back and watch episodes 1, 2, and 3 where they appear to see if he hears them and if there's any response, because I believe that actually could be true. That could be true.
That's
You're one of the, huh?
I said that's my theory. Internet world.
All right, yeah, and you're like the only person that has really kind of brought that up. In fact, one of these days, hopefully, we'll maybe get to talk to Lena Waithe and Marshawn Lynch. Lena, Marshawn, we would love to talk to you at some point about WestWorld and figure out whether you are real people or whether you're just a fear in Caleb's head. So
I know you're watching.
This is my invitation to you to like join us one of these days on the internets and discuss this.
Tim, what are your biggest takeaways from the season 3 finale?
My biggest takeaways are that Dolores is a mastermind and has had a definite process to how all of this was going to turn out. I think now that I'm looking at this started a long time ago. And once again, like you pointed out, Dolores has been studying humans and human behavior and taking notes on everything the entire time. So nothing is kind of just by chance. It's all by design. And I don't know. I kind of wonder how that relates to Dr. Robert Ford, and who created her and created WestWorld and all that stuff. Where I just wonder, was there a reason that he kind of implanted these thoughts and memories like in her head because he saw something coming a long time ago? So that's, one of my biggest things is that there's always been a method to the madness, and we just haven't seen what it is. And we saw like a little bit of that in the finale. And then my other one is that, this whole time we've been thinking like, oh, she holds the key to all of the information. But the fact is, there are a number of key players, and that Dolores already saw that Caleb and Maeve and even Bernard was very important and integral to this new world and this new resistance coming about. And because I didn't know how all of them were going to play into it also. So, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I'm still a little bit confused about some things. So I definitely have some time to sit and watch and rewatch some episodes and kind of pick up some of the little nuggets that we talked about. But I walked away thinking like, wow, I thought it was really cool. And for me, it answered a lot of questions, and it brought up a lot more questions that we will see how they pop in the future.
I couldn't agree more. I love the thinking about Dolores playing like 3D chess, like five levels of chess, not checkers. That whole idea, that to me is great. The other thing, I just want to shout out the writers and the showrunners for WestWorld, because it's like I feel like they're doing such a good job. Because you legitimately, there's no way to know how season 3 would have ended at the beginning of season 3. There are episodes where just like something you couldn't even think was going to happen actually happens. And then
Exactly.
one of the things that I like the most is it feels to me like they're incorporating, whether it's consciously or not, and I'm sure it's, of course, it's consciously, but they're incorporating other classic sci-fi elements. And so
Yes.
when I think about Bernard, he has this little switch, right? And he hit that
Yeah.
switch, and then he became this other guy who could fight and would be violent.
Mhm.
He goes back to being like calm Bernard. That's like a very classic Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing classic motifs like that find their way into new, into new pieces of science fiction.
Yeah. Yeah. And also in this one, in this season, just to throw it in there since you brought that up, this season, because of the fact that it took place in our real world or in a futuristic, advanced, modern world of Los Angeles, of Singapore, of San Francisco, we also got to see all these like fantastic gadgets and futuristic cars and modes of travel and all these other things that you wouldn't necessarily see in Westworld, because Westworld takes place in like a Western motif. And besides the robots, that's kind of like what they were. But we got to see this whole like other like futuristic world that, is not too far away from where we are now. We're riding into Ubers and Lyfts now. Well, Ubers and Lyfts in about 10 years might take up and fly you to another city, So I thought that kind of stuff was really cool. And it also stepped up the production value of the show. For any of the writers and producers and directors, those of us who are fans of the show were as equally satisfied by this as most major budget motion pictures that we saw come out of Hollywood in the last like year or two. So kudos to you all. It was great.
Killing the game. They're killing the game. I can't wait for season 4. I'm going to rewind.
Can you wait? How long can you wait? How long can we wait for a season 4?
It's going to be 2 years. I'm positive it's going to be 2 years. I don't want it to be.
I know. I'm hoping for a year and a half. Maybe it'll be a little bit shorter, but I think because of the ending that we saw, this is my personal belief, that they were doing season 3 and parts of season 4 already.
I hope so.
And so maybe season 4 is a fourth of the way through or halfway through. And then maybe after this big production shutdown that we are all currently living through right now, then it will pick back up and we will get a little, information that says like, hey, the show is coming on summer of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's wishful thinking. Okay, so probably like winter 2021, winter 2022.
Winter 2021 seems very possible to me. Who knows? Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Maybe that'll be everybody's Christmas gift. A year and a half from now, WestWorld comes back on the air and everything. But until then, I think that there's so many twists and turns that we have a lot of stuff that we could talk about and review and go back and everything else. And who knows? But I think they left it at a really good place. And for anybody who's confused, doesn't understand what was going on and everything else, hey, now you have the time to like go back, look at it and everything else, whatever. It really is an epic story that deserves to be looked at and checked out. And look at it, check it out, invite your friends to binge watch it because I think they will enjoy it as well. And hey, you got a year and a half to do it, so you have plenty of time.
You got plenty of time, and also you're not doing anything else at all right now.
Exactly. None of us are. So yeah. With that, I guess that kind of wraps up This Week in Geek. But like we said, nothing is off the table. We wrapped up this episode, but we definitely want to talk about what happened throughout the season. So we'll have to come back and recap all of WestWorld, including like season 3, and look forward to a number of other things that are coming out or are out on streaming platforms and coming out for series this summer. I think there's a lot of really good stuff coming up, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. And I'll be rewatching some of these episodes of WestWorld.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think that's about it for This Week in Geek. I don't know, Tim, anything you want to leave them with?
Got
a catchphrase for us?
you know, I wish I did, but unfortunately, I don't know. I think Charloris kind of sums Charloris, like, you know, whatever you do, don't count out Charloris because she's coming for you.
That's right. Whatever you do, don't count out Charloris.
That's it. So, and hopefully somebody somewhere out there, you know, we will make Charloris a household name.
Yep.
And I only personally hope that Tessa Thompson hears it and that she approves.
Oh my gosh, that would mean if Tessa Thompson liked Charloris, that'd be it. That'd be.
That's it. That makes my year. Drop the mic. Boom. That's it.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. This has been This Week in Geek. He's Tim Gibbs. I'm Tanner Thomason, and we'll see you guys later.
All right. Have a good one.